Yeah, so just a quick recap of yesterday. We covered the food systems track, we did the energy transitions track, we had a showcase, and so for the people that are new, especially the students, thank you guys for coming this morning. We're going to hear from them about 2 o'clock on what sustainability means to them. And just a little recap, I got to put up my hand for the seed show. Our order follows a specific theme and track, and so our green thumb was food systems. We believe that food is what brings people to the table, and so if we can agree on good food, healthy soils, then we can move on to energy systems, because food is our energy, and then we use a lot of other energy to give us the lifestyle and the societies that we want. So then we get into energy transitions, and we talked about decarbonization. We even had a fusion conversation. And so today we're going to be talking about circular economies. That's the third piece in the mitigation side of conservation. And then we're going to get into climate adaptation. Whatever we can't proactively mitigate, we have to adapt to. And then once we get past climate adaptation, we're into sustainability. And we kind of break that down into STEM. What is the 21st century workforce going to look like? How do we become sustainable institutions? How do we become sustainable cities and communities? So that's really what the Carbon Summit is we call it a discovery marketplace for sustainable solutions. So people bring their ideas, their passions, their dreams, and we try to make really complex challenges and problems simple. And so we try to, like my grandpa used to say, problems that are well framed are problems that are half solved. And so we got some pretty big problems, so we need to frame them really well. And so today we're really excited about the lineup. We have some special speakers, and hopefully we're going to have some special panels for you guys. We really want to thank the sponsors and our partners who helped make this happen. Huge shout out to University Sustainability Practice. The group that I work with, I'm a management intern working on sustainability events. And to be very honest, without them, this event might not have happened. So huge shout out to USP for not only helping us organize this, but keeping me sane. So I really appreciate that. And we have Bernhard is the one corporate that was that sponsored our event. And so Chris, big shout out. Thank you so much. Met him at an Arizona Forward event, and he was all ears. And so I really appreciate that as well. CSSI, Campus Student Sustainability Initiatives. They're a student-led organization, and they're helping with the volunteering. We've been meeting with them regularly, asking about what they want, what they care about, and what they're willing to do. Changemaker Central actually helped us get this venue way back in January, February. So I've been thinking about this a long time, and so I'm so glad to be here, and I thank you guys for being here as well. And then we got Arizona Forward, who is a collaborator. We've been going to each other's events, and they've been supportive. And so this wouldn't be possible without partners and collaborators. And one of the organizations, that I've been talking to a lot, more on the film side, as of recently, we did the Southwest Film Expo in Peoria in April, and the Arizona Commerce Authority, Matthew Earl Jones and his team, they've been really instrumental in trying to help us give a vision on the storytelling side of it. If we can visualize and articulate these complex problems in film and in digital media, it's a lot easier to digest. And so we have a special representative here from the Arizona Commerce Authority, Devin Patterson, who is the VP of Business Development. And Devin serves as the Vice President of Business Development at the Arizona Commerce Authority. In this role, he is at the forefront of reinforcing Arizona's economy by fostering strategic partnerships and initiatives that are focused on sustainable technologies. Boasting over a decade of expertise in analytical research and project management, Devin is instrumental in cultivating job opportunities and nurturing robust client relationships within the state. The state is booming, by the way. We're quickly becoming a tech hub. An advocate for economic progress and sustainability, Devin is poised to share insights into how the ACA collaborates with various stakeholders to support and expand Arizona's presence as a hub for sustainable technology and innovation. Please give it up for Devin.
Thank you. I appreciate that. How are you all doing today? Hey, well, thank you all for the invitation. We appreciate that you all wanted to have us here and that you gave us the honor to be able to speak here at this event. So, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's my honor to be here today on behalf of the Arizona Commerce Authority and to welcome you to the second day of the inaugural Carbon Summit here at ASU. This event is an exciting opportunity that brings together industry, academia, and the innovation community to discuss current actions and the future opportunities to advance our state's sustainability ecosystem. Arizona is known as a state for developing, testing, and launching next-generation technologies, groundbreaking innovations, and a vibrant entrepreneurial community that embraces innovation. That also extends to sustainability innovation ecosystem as well. Some examples of this innovation can be seen on our roads with electric vehicles. Show of hands, who has taken a Waymo here up until this point? Who has rode in a Waymo? Only 1, 2? I highly recommend it. Highly, highly recommend it. You also can see across the state the solar panel farms that we're starting to build and more. Arizona's economy is rapidly growing, and that growth cannot happen without sustainable goals and the collaboration of various sectors. In Arizona, we believe that the secret sauce is collaboration. No other state collaborates like Arizona. No other state can bring all industry stakeholders to the table like Arizona. For example, at the ACA, we bring together leaders from industry, academia, and government to ensure companies have what they need to be successful, whether that's at the state level or the federal level. In Arizona, we're fortunate to have leading companies prioritize sustainability, including Footprint, Republic Services, We Recycle Solar, First Solar, and many, many more to come. I would like to acknowledge Footprint for a moment. Since it was founded in 2014, Footprint has set a new standard of excellence for sustainability and strengthened Arizona's reputation as a national sustainability leader. This innovation is taking center stage at the Footprint Center in Phoenix, another place I highly recommend you go and visit. Footprint is partnering with the Phoenix Suns and Phoenix Mercury to implement practices to replace single-use plastic with more sustainable products throughout the arena. Fueled by industry leaders like Footprint, Arizona's sustainability leadership has grown to include cutting-edge industries like electric vehicles, battery recycling and manufacturing, solar energy, and so much more. In fact, since 2016, we've celebrated 5 electric vehicle groundbreakings here in the state. Since 2021, we've been proud to announce 8 different battery expansions, including the groundbreaking of American Battery Factory's $1.2 billion with a B battery manufacturing facility in Tucson, which we announced last month. The state's sustainability ecosystem is also rapidly growing thanks to innovation startups, including Air2O, Ampsera, Oxbio Technologies Incorporated, and more. As we look ahead, Arizona's sustainability future is full of limitless opportunities. In addition to industry leaders prioritizing sustainability in the state, our public universities, ASU, NAU, and U of A, are leading innovative initiative to advance the state's sustainability ecosystem. For example, in April of this year, ASU ranked #1 in the U.S. and #2 in the world for its sustainability practices by the Sustainability Tracking Assessment and Rating System, or STARS for short, a program for the Association for the Advancement of Sustainability in Higher Education. Just last month, the University of Arizona was ranked #2 in the U.S. and #8 in the world for academic research programs for water resources by the 2023 Globe Ranking of Academic Subjects. Additionally, in 2022, Northern Arizona University's graduate and undergraduate degrees in sustainability focused on climate science, environmental science, and earth sciences ranked in the top 20 nationally in Gizmodo's Degrees of the Future 2022, which shows at each level, each university is all working to our sustainability goals as a state. These rankings highlight just some of the exciting sustainability activity initiatives taking place throughout Arizona and highlight the direction that we're heading. In closing, I would like to thank ASU for inviting me and ACA to speak here today, and I look forward to the rest of the summit. I would like to transition to introduce the circular keynote for today, Troy Swope, co-founder of Footprint. Troy Swope is a trailblazer in the field of sustainable packaging as a co-founder of Footprint, a company dedicated to creating alternatives to single-use plastics and packaging. With over 2 decades of experience in packaging, Swope's journey began as an engineer at Intel, where he introduced innovative packaging methodologies, leading to a significant $350 million cost savings. Later, alongside his friend and co-founder, Yok Chung, he established the Unisource Global Solutions, pioneering the use of bamboo fibers in packaging for companies like Dell Computers. This innovative disrupted transitional foam packaging industries by introducing sustainable molded pulp alternatives. At Footprint, Swope has built a top-tier team of engineers, scientists, and designers, securing over 20 patents in pursuit of reducing reliance on single-use plastics. His work has influenced major brands to reconsider their use of plastics in food packaging, demonstrating his passion for challenging the plastic industry to safeguard our oceans, deserts, and human well-being. Please join me in welcoming Troy.
Thanks, Jason, for setting this up. Jason, thanks. Jason has a vision. Right, and the first year is always hard, but if you take a moment, look around, and let's picture next year the conversation getting much bigger, right? And it's through just the discussions we have today, and us walking away from today inspired to make a change, to do something, and inspiring someone to show up next year and be part of the conversation. So, Asher, you want to say hello?
Hello, everyone.
What's your name?
I'm Asher, and yeah.
Just say you're Asher Portman.
Yeah, I'm Asher Portman.
So Asher has a brilliant brain, and he was over at my house this weekend, and I had a great idea when I was talking to him. I'm going to include you in my conversation. So today I'm going to talk about being cautiously optimistic, which is kind of dangerous. So this is my boardroom in ancient 2022, and given a normal business update to my board, and that's, you can see me there in the middle. In my normal business update, I had a board member look at me and go, "You're optimistic." And that 4-syllable word, to me, was a 4-letter word. He said it in a way that it was extremely negative. You're optimistic. And before, luckily, I didn't react because I was on fire. What did he just call me? Right? And I was going to, just react to his response. And that word, optimistic. And it was meant to be extremely negative. And I thought to myself a few times, optimistic. He just called me optimistic. And I'm like, why am I reacting so negatively? So I looked at him and I said, well, of course I am. I've raised hundreds of millions of dollars, believing we're going to transform $1 trillion industry. I've got thousands of employees, and we're all here because we have an unwavering belief that this is possible. So of course I'm optimistic. But for the rest of my time with that board, I always had to, every time I say I'm optimistic, I'd use the word, I'm cautiously optimistic, which was, to me, was really negative. I had to say that just so that someone wouldn't go, well, you're just optimistic. But of course I'm optimistic. So let's talk about that today. All right, so who I am, Devin did a fantastic job. I don't think I can do better than that. But where I'm going, so when I was at Intel and how I got where I'm, what I call myself an accidental environmentalist, I was at Intel, I ran a material science group there, that we found out in 24 hours of shipping, we could damage Intel's products with outgassing. So if you're not familiar with outgassing is your new car smell. A lot of us like it. Actually, we can pick that as an air freshener. It's really not good for you, right? So outgassing in 24 hours of shipment can damage Intel's products. But when you walk through a supermarket, all our food is in plastic, right? So I started going, well, is there plastic in our food? So I brought that to Intel, and if anybody's here from Intel, and I know Jason, you're recording this, I don't think I was supposed to bring food to Intel's labs, but I did. And we started testing it, going, is there plastic on this food? And there was alarming amounts of plastic in our food. And what shook me was cut fruits, right? Cut fruits that say pre-washed. It was full of phenols and phthalates and things that are really, really bad for your endocrine system. We're all over this fruit. And so I had the aha moment. I'm going to take a team and develop the technologies that eliminate plastic, get plastic out of food. So I founded Footprint. It's well on its way on that mission. And now I founded another company, Tarim Lab, that's going to bring everything together that not only transforms plastic and gets harmful chemicals and the plastic out of packaging, but actually returns that food waste and that packaging waste back to the planet to add value, right? So that's who I am. So this is how Asher is going to help me out today. Clicking right. Might need help. Maybe it's a clap. So Asher was over this weekend, and I heard a story about a problem Asher had, but I wanted to illustrate his amazing brain. And then he's going to help me tell the story today. But Asher, tell us, you had a problem with stale chips, right?
Yes. You see, I have a brother, and every time he eats chips, he always leaves the bag open and leaving me with stale chips.
So you saw a problem, right? And how do you think about solving this problem?
Well, I thought, how do I take something I have and turn it into something I need? And since I have a lot of Legos, after some time making various models and shapes, I finally came up with a clip to keep the bag closed and the chips fresh.
Now, what do you think you're going to do with this clip? Did you think you could sell it?
Well, yes. I thought if I'm having this problem, heck, maybe other people are too. So, since a lot of kids like building Legos, maybe I could build a kit where it would come with the parts, instructions, and people could stop their brothers from ruining their snacks.
On the way here, I asked if he had any other ideas, and he said, well, if you get rid of little brothers, it would solve the problem. But what I wanted to highlight, thank you, Asher. You can sit down, bud, or you can go return your mouth. Asher's got an entourage, too, if you want to highlight Asher's entourage today. Yeah, thanks, Asher. So when I heard this story, and Asher was telling me this story, the whole time I was thinking, wow, this is kind of what I wanted everyone to take away from today. And I know there's a group of a high school group here today. Raise your hand, right? Fantastic. Hopefully we're going to inspire you to do something like that. And my professor, Mr. Bazell is here, right? Bazell, is that right? He hopes that we don't beat you down with education, that you still think like Asher does, that we can solve this, right? All right, so back to optimism. Well, I certainly have board members that don't believe it's necessary and that it's not important. So is it really important that we're optimistic? So I started doing research before, when Jason invited me out here, I was like, I thought it was important, but I'm going to look into this. And so do we need this? Well, it turns out, right? So Simon Sinek, famous organizational behavioralist, started a company. When he started doing research on the core ingredient of success, he started a company based on it called Optimism Company, right? And it turns out optimism is important. It's been the foundation that's pushed humanity forward, right? So it is important, right? And my quote that I wish I would have sent to my board is, all great leaders are optimists. We have to have this. This is a core ingredient. And we have to have a belief that our future is bright and that we can change it, especially you, right? I'm talking to you, you're that group up there, right, and Asher. We have to have a belief that we can change the future. Right? And then my favorite part of my journey is all these problems are business opportunities. Right? Sustainability and saving the planet doesn't have to be at a cost. It can be at a return. And not that it can be at a return, it will be at a return. The next great entrepreneurs and innovators for this world are going to take advantage of the problems that we're having today and develop the technologies that give back to the planet, not take from it. I hope you take that as a key message. So we need to have a firm belief that we can solve these problems, and we got to see these problems as an opportunity. All right, so I was challenged with the question this morning, was what if I'm not optimistic, right? And you look around the world today, it's kind of hard, right? Our media certainly doesn't want us to be optimistic, doesn't sell, right, ad space, right? And we literally are told the world is on fire, right? How do we maintain optimism? How do we maintain a belief, right? And here's some of the data that really beats us down, right? Climate change could lead to mass extinction. Global warming could halve the planet habitable space. Right? This is all messages this year. Sea level rise is going to displace millions. Millions are going to die from heat. So we hear every day. It's all around us. Climate disaster. It's one of the most common Googled, right, things. Climate disaster. So disaster means it's already over, right? So are the innovators and entrepreneurs thinking, well, it's already over, it's too late? And here's the other flip side to this. We have very powerful leaders that are denying anything, right? This is just a hoax to make China manufacturing stronger. That's probably my favorite. And then you have the Australian Prime Minister that says, there's no credible evidence here, right? What about Boris Johnson saying, this is just cyclical. Nothing's really happening. Here's the thing. We all know there's clearly a problem. There's clearly a problem. There's something that we don't need to debate, and it's pollution, right? So we could say it's atmospheric pollution, which is carbon and other things, or we could just say, look on the ground, and we don't need to debate this. Waterways are polluted, oceans are polluted. There's no debate. We clearly have a problem, right? And that we could solve. So this is an opportunity, but more on that problem, right? So we often say, China's the problem, right? Right here in the United States, the EPA says 70% of our drinking water is contaminated with at least one contaminant. 60% of our streams and rivers are not clean enough to support life. So there's opportunity, right? Tremendous opportunity. Can't deny it, right? But we can solve it. So the call to action, how do we maintain optimism, right? We got to create a belief. We got to create a belief that the future is bright. And I'll talk about how we do that. Set achievable goals. And I'll talk a little bit too. I'm discouraged, and I was talking to my professor just a minute ago about, I'm discouraged when I look at corporate goals. They're always so far down the road, 2030, 2040, 2050. I'm going to do something. I'm going to deliver something. Discouraging. Well, let's set goals that we can achieve today. Get a win. It'll inspire a belief. And then I think finally where I live my life, and I want you to take away from today, is that all these problems are just massive business opportunity. We solve these problems, you're going to create tremendous wealth. Right? So how do we create a belief when we don't have a belief? Well, we have a history that we can solve in major environmental problems. So the one that I remember as a kid the most is acid rain. I don't know if you lived through this. I lived in LA. I was told, don't go outside when it rains. Can't go outside when it rains, right? Because it could kill you. Right? We literally had cars that were rusting out early because of acid rain. This was alarming, right? This was our climate change of the time. We solved this, right? So we had a major emission issue with fossil fuel power plants. We had emission issues with our cars, and we developed technologies that built emissions around our power plants, and we developed catalytic converter, improved it, so that we reduced emissions on our cars, and we created the Clean Air Act amendments in 1990, right? Considered one of the greatest environmental legislations of all time, right? And we solved this problem. Does anyone talk about acid rain today? No? Right? So there's reason to be optimistic. We could solve these problems, right? As long as we don't deny them. It's real. There's another one. Ozone depletion. This was a major issue as well, right? 196 countries came together and signed the Montreal Protocol, right? And we eliminated ozone depleting chemistries. A company called Daikin out of Japan made a fortune developing alternatives to our refrigerant that we were using at the time, and really launched themselves before the Montreal Protocol was even signed as an alternative to ozone depleting chemistries. So they saw an opportunity and made a ton of money. But again, legislators working together, innovators working together. This is another area, they say by the middle of this century, the ozone will be repaired. Right? And if you remember listening to the ozone layer, that was going to be the end of humanity, right? But we solved it. We came together, we worked together. So there's some reason to be optimistic, right? Number 2, set achievable goals. Right? So if you're struggling with, I don't believe we can do this, I think it's too late, then let's take a small step. Let's take smaller steps. And I'm a little discouraged, and some of these guys are my customers. So here's some data, right? We're not moving fast enough. So we think about set goals for today. We're not moving fast enough. Right? What else is that we're not simply doing enough to fight climate change, and that it's just soon to be a disaster unless we do something. But yet, when I look at corporate goals, we're not moving fast enough, they tell us. Nothing's happening. But when I look at corporate goals, and I don't understand how these companies aren't being challenged more. Everything's in 2030, 2040, 2050. What are you doing today, right? Apple could come out and say, I'm going to reduce energy 10% across my supply chain. Same output, 10%. They could say that today. Maybe they could say, I'm going to reduce waste, my packaging waste, 20%, 15%. What are they doing today? Why push it to 2030? Amazon, I know they're making changes today, but the reason these goals are set out this far is because there's going to be 2, maybe 3 different CEOs before 2040. And every time a new CEO comes on, he has a choice to go, do we want to commit to these, or are we even close? Have we made any progress? And they can decommit to us into the planet. So what we need to do here is set goals for today. While you're CEO, what are you going to deliver? Right? What are you going to deliver to us, your consumers, your stakeholders, to the planet? And if you're struggling with creating a belief around that we can achieve this, this is also another way, right? Having a goal, a deliverable today. Take a step. I'm going to reduce energy X%, right? I can reduce our waste X% this year. And it may be small, but take a step, achieve it, build a belief. We're seeing this, and I tend to love Unilever. Unilever has a massive impact on the planet. They touch nearly 2 billion people a day with their products and massive supply chains. Paul Pullman, former CEO, in 2010 built Unilever's Universal Sustainable Living Plan. But even a lot of those goals, and they've done a great job, they made a lot of progress, but their new CEO is even recognizing having commitments out in 2030, 2039 for one of them, is just not moving the needle. So you're seeing some corporate response that says, hey, we need to develop short-term goals, short-term wins that we can recognize that we moved the needle. Right? We have too many long-term goals. So I think this is progress. Step 3, and again, this is where I live. All of these problems are opportunities. They're business opportunities. So again, a vision for next year is that this room is packed and we're all walking away with something that we could take home and go, I can help with that. I could solve that. I know somebody working on that, and we connect them. Bring these people together and create opportunities together. Right? And I live in the venture space, raised $1 billion in my life, in my entrepreneurial journey. And venture capitalists are investing in climate technologies. And the reason for that is, and they're not dumb, right? Is that they believe these technologies are going to return on their invested capital. That's the only reason they put money there, is that they believe that it's going to return. So they're starting to see that we are making a difference. Our innovators, our ideas, they're going to scale and they're going to return on invested capital. And over $70 billion, 89% increase in climate technology has been funded since 2021. So it's a huge opportunity to solve these problems. All right. So key takeaways, call to action, right? We got to have an unwavering belief that we can solve these problems. And if you're struggling with that, create small wins. Create small wins, or research and recognize small wins. There is improvement. There's a lot of amazing ideas. We're going to hear them today. But we got to have an unwavering belief that we can solve these problems, like acid rain, like the ozone layer. We're going to solve now this planetary problem, climate change, right? We can do this, right? Start with pollution. Let's take everything that we are waste. I'll start with packaging. This is my space. And let's bring all that packaging back to the planet. We'll have an impact on atmospheric waste. We'll have an impact on energy. We'll have an impact on our oceans, on biodiversity, right? It'll have a massive impact. One area, focus on one area, and we can have a massive change on the planet. And there's a lot of other ideas here to do that well. And the other and final takeaway, these problems are all just opportunity, right? And there's a lot of people in this room that can help you connect your idea to someone that can help you, right? Or you may have an idea that can help someone else. Connect with them. And then again, I think, Jason, fantastic job setting this up. First year, right? Let's have a vision for next year, this room being full. The ACA can help us, right? This being full and the discussion where we're connecting everybody that could absolutely help with this problem. And that connecting a group of people, an ecosystem that has an unwavering belief that we are going to make a difference. And my belief, we're going to make a difference and make a lot of money doing it. Final statement. Ashley's going to read it to you. Can you read that, bud?
We can solve the problem of climate change. We just need to work together and be optimistic.
Thank you. Thanks, bud.
Appreciate you. Okay, so that was a tour de force in circularity, and it really drives the point home. You know, I started this in 2021 in Idaho, and politics weren't the most favorable there. We were in the height of the COVID pandemic. The only place that would let me do an in-person event was a little town in Caldwell, and it was very, agricultural community. I had mentioned before that my mentor, Gabe Brown, out of Bismarck, North Dakota, who is a regenerative agricultural champion, has been beating the doors down on solutions and viewing the same way that Troy does, and as me as well. As the bigger the problem I see, the bigger the opportunity. But convincing people that we should be working on these things is a challenge. And to Troy's point, I always think about, it's like 2050 is not going to come, or 2040 is not going to come, but 2026, 2025, those are actual measurable, qualifiable, actionable goals. And so I totally resonate with Troy's message that, there's things that we can and we should and we need to be doing, and it resonates back to a promise and a warning. The promise being we can be the change that we need to see, but the warning is we must be that change. And so I think, since we got some time here, were there any questions, or should we just maybe hop right into the panel, because I'm fired up here. So I think we're gonna. Anybody got any questions for Troy here? I know. Yeah, let me grab another mic here.
Very inspiring, Troy. Thanks for being here. I'm curious if you're optimistic or cautiously optimistic that we have the will to create the policy changes that are going to be required.
Oh, that's a great question. And my lady's probably going, oh no, he's going to start talking politics. I'm going to be just completely honest. I'm disappointed in our political leadership, for sure. I think consumers have the will. And I think you're starting to see, certainly the EU has some interesting legislation around the climate and pollution that you see California adopt. And there's enough disruption in the supply chain when California adopts it for multinational companies that it ends up just being a national legislation, even though it may just be only in California. Does that make sense? An example, Tyson Food was a big customer of mine, and 33% of their supply chain is California. So if California requires a change, say in packaging, they had to do it for everywhere. They couldn't do it just for California. So I think we're going to back into it. I think, unfortunately, and I talk about this quite a bit, climate change and carbon have become debatable. Right? There's debate on the impact of carbon has on the planet. In fact, I get all kinds of people send me stuff. Apparently, they love to send it to me going, well, carbon makes plants grow, right? And we're getting greener, right? And, but so I try to stay away from debatable things and say, let's just talk about pollution. Right? We have waterways polluted, and here in the U.S., we have oceans. The United States is creating the largest dead zone on the planet. The U.S. is. The Mississippi River is. We should address those, focus on those, and stop giving legislators something that they can make political and then dance on both sides of the aisle. Did that answer your question?
It does, yeah. So you mentioned Paul Pullman, and I think this is Hans Rosling. Is that the new CEO of Unilever?
No. Hans is, he's since passed away, but Hans wrote the book Factfulness. He does a great job of providing real data that we could be optimistic about the planet. Right.
So what's the role of CEOs like you in this policy and legislative arena? How do you get involved, or are you discouraged? You're gonna just do your thing with venture capital and try to make the market speak for you?
Well, I think the opportunity is, I just saw today there's a plastic treaty going on. I don't know if it's going on today, and there's meetings today on it. And I think there's 70 nations represented with about 85 people, but there's 170 oil and gas lobbyists there. So they're outnumbered nearly 3 to 1, right? Saying, hey, this is, come on, plastic's really good. It's your problem. You don't recycle it, right? So I think that my focus is to be, there are technologies, there are alternatives, and they are cost effective, right? So my focus is to make sure that everybody knows that we can do something about these things, that you can't just say, well, there's nothing else that works as good, or food waste is going to be so much higher, or it's too expensive. I think our job is to provide the technologies to say, no, this is possible.
Thanks.
You talk about these corporations like Apple, and I just wonder how you view growth. Do you view that as counterproductive to, is it making it harder for big corporations to become sustainable because they're trying to grow at a rate that they can't catch up with the sustainability?
Well, certainly corporations need to look at their growth projections or expectations around growth and go, how much do I have to take from the planet or rob the planet to support that growth? And that's probably a pretty controversial word, but it's really what happens, right? We take all these natural resources and we convert it into something of value. We need energy, whatever, to make our iPhone. They need to think about that and say, okay, I'm going to need to be able to support that growth, but not rob from the planet, right? So then there's innovation opportunity, and you're talking about an extremely innovative company. But it says, okay, so how do I make sure all my factories that are primarily in China, I think they're trying to move some to India now, but how do I make all these factories run on renewable energy, right? And then if I do that, then relative to the energy use and the greenhouse gas emissions for every phone I create, is it less than what I did 5 years ago, and therefore I could support this much more growth than what I have today. So I think they just need to apply the same level of innovative spirit in developing new phone technologies as they do of saying, how can I grow without robbing the planet, right? And I think that somebody that helps them with that is going to make a fortune, right? But I think that in a lot of the ways, that's renewable energy, right? And there's opportunities to accelerate that. Certainly here in the U.S., right? We spend a lot of money in the Ukraine. We could apply that for infrastructure here. We could put a lot more solar and renewable energy here with that money, a lot. Right? I just went political again.
Okay, anybody last call for questions?
Oh, yeah. So we're at Footprint. Our first focus was transforming the supermarket because that was our vision. We walked through the supermarket and we developed technologies that really focused on rigid plastics, right? So yogurts, frozen food, which is a big market, but there's a lot more low-hanging fruit on waste. So when we were there, we were constantly concerned of what's the end of life of our product, right? It is plant-based. We developed over 2,400 invention disclosures under patent just to make an oxygen and oil barrier. But really, what's going to happen to it? So ultimately, you get it home, you're going to throw it away. It's recyclable, but again, that recyclable is just a dirty word, right? The reality means it can be under perfect conditions, or if somebody wants it, right? When something has food waste, even a plant-based solution that's, in paper packaging gets recycled at 70-something% rate versus plastic at now about 5%. But even a paper-based solution wasn't going to get recycled with food waste in it. So that just became an alarm to me. All right, what's going to happen to this? And the other area that I was really concerned about is if I looked at quick service restaurants, which creates 40 billion tons of waste every year in the United States, approximately, right? Anywhere from 25 to 45 billion tons. I was looking at that, and they have a lot of paper-based stuff, but there's so much harmful chemicals in it to create the oil barrier. If you heard of forever chemicals, PFAS, a popular word today. No, we weren't touching that at Footprint. And then, of course, of that 45 tons of waste comes out of quick service restaurants, nearly 25 tons of that is food. And the food and packaging can't go together because the packaging, plant-based, is full of harmful chemicals. So the idea with the new company is take the harmful chemicals out, still get the same performance oil and grease barrier, and then let's develop solutions to where all this food and packaging waste can be upcycled and returned to a farm. So if you think of a company like, and this was really the inspiration, Sweet Greens, right? So Sweet Greens, I don't know if you guys know, we don't have them here in Arizona, but it's basically a Chipotle for amazing salads. They like to source all their agriculture locally, right? And their menu is really expressed by what's locally available. So the vision is we were working with them at Footprint was going, how do we ultimately get all their waste, packaging included, from their stores back out to a farm locally? And so that's the idea for Tarim Lab. That's part of it. But for us, that all the change starts with we got to get all the harmful chemicals and plastic out of paper-based packaging. So you don't know when you go to Starbucks and you got a paper cup, it's got plastic in it. So there's really no value for it, end of life. It's recyclable, 1 mil in Wisconsin. So are you going to ship it from California up to Wisconsin? No. So its only option is to go into a dig and dump strategy, right? We'll dig a hole somewhere, we'll dump it in it, right? So we got to take all that plastic, and it's in everything. Every paper-based packaging you see at Starbucks, McDonald's, KFC's, all has chemicals or plastic in it that's harmful for a healthy soil. And we want to create not just a compostable soil, we want to create a stimulant, something that's going to stimulate plant growth. So a farmer would go, or regenerative farmer Jason mentioned, would go, I want that. Bring that to my farm. That has value to me. Not just, well, I can hide the shit. Sorry. Right? So that's what's happening today. A lot of these technologies are being developed, composted under the symbol. But the reality is nobody wants that soil. You wouldn't let your kids walk barefoot on it, right? So we got to get all those chemicals out, create a soil that someone's going to go, I want that. Put that on my farm.
What's the biggest challenge with that right now? Developing the new technology or getting it implemented at those organizations?
So when I was at Footprint full-time, I ran across a group in Alabama that was in pharmaceuticals that has a pretty cool technology, so I bought them. And so the technology is amazing, and it's available. It scales easy. So it's about just getting it out there, tested, proven. And after we get all those chemicals out of all the packaging, the challenge will be, and the reason I love being here, and I'm part of the Sustainable Leadership Program at ASU, is I want to connect with people that are going to help build the back end, which is, okay, so now we have all this waste, say at the Phoenix Sun Footprint Center, we have all this food and packaging waste. How do we make that a healthy stimulant that we can return to a farm? And then we're going to prove it there, we're going to prove it at SoFi Stadium, and then we're going to prove it at every McDonald's and Starbucks. Yes, we for the new company, yeah, it's tarimlab.com. Tarimlab.com, yeah.
Troy, about big oil. They seem to be the enemy. Are you working with them? Are they working with to alleviate this?
No, I don't want to say they're bad. they were necessary for the growth, industrial revolution that we've seen today and where we are with technology and development today. It's just we need to, and I think in some ways we need to embrace that more, because I think a lot of until infrastructure is developed on renewable energy, we saw this in Germany, you can make decisions hastily that actually have a massive impact on energy price and cost that really harms poor people or lower income families than it does anyone else, right? So I think that we need to embrace and work with them. But clearly, we also need to recognize there's a transition. And they either got to help with it, right? But I think that they are bad when I hear that there's 170 oil and gas lobbyists at the plastic treaty today, the global plastic treaty today. That's, to me, they're bad. And they're taking advantage of a bad political system. I think there's too many conflicts in our political system today, right? And they're taking advantage of those abilities to create those conflicts. Does that make sense?
Yeah, just to kind of reinforce your point, I talk about going from energy conflicts to energy resolutions, and being from an oil and gas region in North Dakota, from the Bakken, there's currently thousands of flares around my hometown. And so I know innovators, like I told our governor at one point in time that we could raise, a couple hundred welders and fabricators to capture that gas, liquefy it, send it off to Europe. I mean, last year they were starving for it, and there was just no political will for that. And so it's like, we'd rather gas out my community and, make billions of dollars, which we have a legacy fund in North Dakota that has over $8 billion in it. And it's like, well, the money's not the issue here. It's the political will, and so that's where we got to unify and have a collective voice saying, I don't believe oil and gas is bad. They got some of the best engineers in the world, but those engineers aren't being asked to solve those problems, and so the Permian is ramping up to 5.4 million barrels per day from 3 million. And so that's, $232 million a day coming out of the ground. So that's a pretty big opposition if they want it to be an opposition. So I don't view them as, I see it as an opportunity, to work with them, but it's got to be their idea. I mean, that's what it comes down to.
Good point.
And so I think with that, let me transition out here, and we'll get the panel going, and then we'll maybe break a little bit early for lunch and have some good conversations.